Hi, welcome everyone to another episode of Communicate with Impact. My guest today is Brendan Kumarasamy. He is from Montreal, Canada. Now, Brendan is a fellow YouTuber and his YouTube channel is MasterTalk. I would highly recommend to go and watch it as it's wealth of information when it comes to public speaking and communication. I would like to first of all, thank you, Brendan, for coming onto the show and sharing your knowledge and wisdom to the viewers. Thank you very much. I would also like, Brendan, if you can introduce yourself for all the viewers.
For sure, happy to. So as you said, my name is Brendan Kumarasamy. I'm the founder of MasterTalk. MasterTalk is both the YouTube channel and a coaching practice that I started to help the world master the art of communication and public speaking. And how I got started was when I was in college. I went to business school. I didn't really want to be an entrepreneur or a communication coach. I did what other Indians do in their age, which is to get a great job. So I became an accountant. But in that journey on it, I did these things called case competitions. Think of it like professional sports, but for nerds. So other guys my age are playing rugby or cricket or some other sport. I did presentations competitively. That's how I learned how to speak. And that's what started MasterTalk from the beginning.
How did the word Master Talk came into picture?
That was also luck, Amit. So when I started the YouTube channel, I'm not very creative. I think I'm creative on the content creation, the thought leadership perspective. The name was really simple. I got all of my friends to make a list of 50 names. So I told everybody, hey, I'm creating a YouTube channel on communication. I don't want to call it my name because no one's going to figure out how to spell my name, as you can tell from the screen of looking at it. No one's going to be able to spell it. So we had like talking, energy, sync talk, like we just made 250 names like that. And then we went through all of them. And then we voted on which one made the most sense. So I actually came up with MasterTalk in one day. My friend came up with it. And then I looked up online in the US Trademarks Bureau, and MasterTalk was not trademarked. So I said, perfect, that's the name we're going to move forward with. So I got lucky.
Wow. And it's quite interesting. I mean, the name itself is quite catchy in a way. It's simple, MasterTalk. And it says that, all right, you're here for communication, and that's what you're going to get. So I really like that idea. So, Brendan, so tell me, what all MasterTalk does now? Like, whom all do you connect with? What sort of content that you create for people?
For sure, Amit. So when I started, it wasn't really a business or an idea. I was just making these videos for fun. Because what happened was I was in my last semester of college. I'd landed a great job at IBM. I worked there for many years as a technology consultant. So I wasn't looking to be a business owner. But I accidentally helped 70 people communicate better because I'd coached so many students for free, by the way. I didn't even know you get paid to be a coach. Right? I was just helping them. And then they asked me the most brilliant question, which was, Brendan, how did you learn how to speak? And I said, well, what do you mean? They said, well, did you hire somebody? Did you do Toastmasters? Like, what did you do? And I said, well, I didn't have that much money. I just learned it on my parents were factory workers. I couldn't afford anything. And that's when I realized that there was a gap in the market. Like, people who can't afford a coach, what do? They don't have resources. That's why your show is a great example of that, right? Communicate with impact. But I was like, what other resources can we create? So that's what triggered the idea for the channel. So I was just making videos for fun in my basement. And it's only later in my career that I hired a production team and we made it all really nice. But that's how it started. But then later what happened was I started developing a lot of executive clientele, a lot of vice presidents in companies, senior VPs, CEOs. They would reach out and they would say, I don't have time to watch your videos. Can I just hire you directly? I'll pay you whatever you want. And I just said, oh, I could do this full time. So I found the right partners and we built a coaching business so that I used that money to make free videos for the world.
First of all, what is communication by you in terms of definition? How would you define communication?
Very good question, Amit. So let me actually talk specifically, because a lot of my clients are in the IT space. So let's start with the challenge. Why do they struggle with communication? The reason is actually really simple. Because they grow up their entire careers being rewarded for the deliverable that they're presenting to either the client or the organization, and not the way that they're conveying ideas. Simple example. Let's say they're a developer, right? So usually Indian background, or a lot of my clients are in that space, IT. You're actually the ideal client, right? But you're a great communicator, so you probably don't know me. But the point is they start as a developer, and they get really good. They get promoted very quickly because they're talented from a technical perspective. But what happens is when you hit middle management, as you know very well since you're 20 years into your career, is you don't get paid to code it anymore. You don't care anymore. Yeah, other people can do that. You need to manage coders. It's people management now. So from manager to CTO, Chief Technology Officer, CISO, at that level, it's all people management. So if you don't know soft skills, if you don't know small talk, you'll never get promoted. And that's why people block in their careers. So that's the reason. The second piece is you're absolutely right, Amit. When we think about coding, when we think about losing weight, there's a measurable outcome. It's very easy to progress. So I've actually ran into that same challenge, is how do we create an engineer structured approach to communication? I have that solution, so I'll present that today. So the way that I think about it is communication is like juggling 18 balls at the same time. So one of those balls is eye contact, one of those balls is facial expressions, one of them is body language, storytelling. And the secret is one ball at a time. I call this my easy threes, right? But I'll start with just the first ball and then I'll throw it back to you. The random word exercise. So the random word exercise is an exercise where you just light bulb, you pick a ceiling, you pick lights, and you create random presentations out of thin air. But the secret is you do that 100 times. You don't do anything else. And you just measure the progress of that one exercise. In the same way that we think about coding, we don't try and code 9 different languages at the same time. We do Python first, then C++, then Ruby on Rails. So it's the same context for communication, one thing at a time.
Is it fair to say that the idea behind it is to get comfortable with any random words and how to talk?
Exactly, Amit. So there's 2 pieces that I'll add on top of your share, which is 100% correct, which is, it helps you deal with uncertainty. So life is uncertain. We can have small talk with a VP at a company, we can find the love of our life on a street and talk to them, but we don't know how that conversation is going to go. What questions are you going to ask me? What's going to happen? We don't know. So the random word exercise helps us do what's harder outside of the boardroom so that the boardroom becomes a joke. If you talk about avocados for 30 seconds, like at the beginning, you go, I can't do this exercise, it's impossible. But then you do it 10 times, you're like, okay, this is not impossible, I could probably do this. And then if you do this 100 times, you start to develop that inner confidence. The second piece that I teach my clients all the time that people can write on a piece of paper is if you can make sense out of nonsense, you can make sense out of anything. So if you can make sense out of like light bulb, when you go back into your Scrum meetings, my God, I mean, you're delivering the same product features all the time over and over and over again. Those meetings become a joke because you already know what you're doing.
A key performance indicator for communication, sort of like if I want to say that, hey, let's benchmark it, how can I do it?
I love the question, right? Very, very good. So here's the way I would do it. And I'm still thinking about this. I'm still getting better, but I would say here's my answer right now in this conversation. You're measuring the number of balls that you can juggle at the same time. So let's go back to that 18 ball analogy, right? So what am I doing right now in this conversation? I'm doing a lot of things. My facial expressions, my vocal tone variety, my projection, my body language. So I'm spinning all 18 at the same time. I'm telling you stories about my life. But the way that you measure it from an engineer's perspective is you're just asking yourself, how many balls can I juggle? So let's expand on that thought a little bit. So let's say we start the random word exercise, which is ball number 1. Are we measuring the number of attempts that we've tried the random word exercise for? We're not measuring the mistakes that we're making, the number of ums and ahs. We're not measuring any of that. We're just measuring how many times did I do that this week? Is the number 0 or is the number 10? So that's the first thing that we do. That's the easiest metric to measure, and most of us will be 0. And I'll tell you this right now, Amit, any person, I have not met a single person in my 7-year career thus far who has done the random word exercise 100 times, and the 100th time was worse than the first time. It's never happened in my career. 100% of the time, when somebody does the random word exercise more than 100 times, it's always better than the first one. In the same way that as you progress with this podcast, your 100th episode, your 200th episode will be way better than your first. There's no denying. Except now the benchmark is a lot easier because you don't have to do a 60-minute episode. The random word exercise takes 60 seconds. So you could do it 100 times in literally 3 days. Like, it's really simple. Make sense so far? So that's one.
Yeah.
The second benchmark is ball number 2, which I define as the question drill. So the question drill just means, Amit, that we can ask question time in our life. Scrum meetings, work, podcasts, school, family, but most of us are reactive to those questions. We're not proactive. I'll give you an example with me. When I started guesting on shows, probably 3.5 years ago, I was terrible, man. Horrible. I remember some guy asked me, he said, where does the fear of communication come from? And I looked at him and I said, Sydney? Maybe Los Angeles? That's where it's from. So like, I didn't know the answer. So how did I fix that problem? Every single day, Amit, for 5 minutes, I answered one question that I thought the world would ask me about my expertise. That's why when you start asking me KPI questions in your mind, you think, oh, I don't want to ask something Brendan's not comfortable answering. That's probably your thought. But you're noticing how I'm just going with the flow. Any question I'm able to throw an answer. Why is that? Not because I'm special, but because I did the random word exercise. I did the question drill 1,000 times.
Where can I find that information?
Yes. So I can definitely share more about it. So it's not something you can read because I invented it, to be quite honest. Because I felt that it didn't exist. But I can walk you through all of them. But I think the biggest takeaway, here's the biggest takeaway, is if you're not doing the random word exercise, storytelling doesn't matter. If you're not doing the random word exercise, body language does not matter. If you're not doing the random word exercise, repetition is key, then who cares about being a keynote speaker? Because we need to be willing to do ball 1. Ball number 3 is pick 3 to 5 people that you really admire in your life. People you look up to, people that are generous, people that are your friends. And just send them video messages about how much you appreciate them. Hey Amit, not on social media, like this. Hey Amit, really appreciate everything you're doing for the world. Love the impact you're creating. I hope you're having a wonderful day. Wishing you a wonderful week. Simple, 15 seconds. And that's a third benchmark. So before we even go to ball 5, 6, 18, ball 4 is the best way to speak is to speak. So this is the next step for your audience, Amit. Are we booking 15 minutes in our calendar every single day to do the random word exercise, to do the question drill, and to send video messages?
People can do, of course. Like, so let's say if I do this every single day, right? So I take the random word exercise. But apart from that, is there anything that you recommend, or this is good enough to start off with?
Right. So I would recommend 3 that we talked about, which ties into this.
Yeah.
So the random word exercise for sure. So let's break down that 15 minutes a day. So 5 of those minutes should be 3 to 5 random words. So you wake up, you go bulb, trophy, cup, and you just do the random word. You're done. That's it. That's your 3 minutes. Then the next 5 minutes should be, let me answer one question that somebody will ask me. So in my case, day 1, it's where does the fear come from? Day 2 might be what's your tips for introverts? It's like, oh, I don't know. And then I write down an answer. And then day 3 might be what's your tips for extroverts? So every day is a new question. That's 5 minutes, 1 question, done. So now it's only 10 minutes. And then the last 5 minutes is you pick 3 people. Maybe it's their birthday on Facebook. Send them each a 20-second video message. Hey, I saw it was your birthday today. Happy birthday. Hope you're having a wonderful day. And that's it. That's your practice, and you're done for the day.
So when you say random word exercise, do you want them, let's say we pick up bulb, right? So you want the people to actually write down sentences over it, or, okay, so.
Exactly, Amit. I'm glad. So here's what we're going to do, everyone who's listening. Amit is going to give me a brand new word, and I'm going to demonstrate the random word exercise right now. So give me any word. Just don't give me bulb, because it gave me time to think. So pick another word.
Board. Or whiteboard.
Board? Whiteboard. Yeah. Okay, perfect. So here I go. It's Sunday morning, and I'm using my whiteboard, Amit, to sketch out all of my ideas and what I want to do for the week. Should I spend more time creating content? Should I spend more time on interviews and more conversations? Or should I prioritize my clients this week? And what a whiteboard allows us to do is it allows us to really organize our thoughts together. But here's the problem, is that in our society, Amit, people aren't willing to invest in just a small whiteboard to organize their thoughts, to make themselves more efficient, to say, you know what, if I had a whiteboard, I could live a better life, which is more productive and allows me to organize what I need to do. So I encourage all of you listening to this podcast today, because this conversation is not about the whiteboard, it's about your life. What are you doing to organize the thoughts? Whether it's on a whiteboard, it could be a chalkboard, it could be a paper on the floor, it could be with your phone, it doesn't matter. But what matters is, are we organizing our thoughts in a way that creates action? Because if we did, we could look at that whiteboard every week, look at our goals every month, and see the progress and the momentum that leads to our destiny. And that's the random word exercise. That's it.
Like a decade old or 2 decades old now into organizations, because they have a certain mindset, right? It's very challenging to change that. What are the things that you work upon with them? Just to get kick-started.
For sure. Here's what I would say, right? You're right. But most people will never try and get better. So they'll stay. So for those who are listening to this podcast, you obviously want to get better. So what's the first step I'd recommend? Doing these exercises more consistently and doing it with your children, if you have any, for those of you listening to this. That's the easiest way to integrate all of this without hiring a coach. So it would be do the random word exercise with your kids when you're picking them to and from school. Because they actually teach us a valuable lesson, Amit, which is they don't have any fear of judgment. When you're 5 years old and you give them book, they don't sit there and they go, I'm scared. No, they go, oh, book is something I read every day. Like, they just do it. They're teaching us that lesson. Number 2, question drills. Kids ask questions all the time. Just ask them better questions back. Don't say, how was your day? Ask them something like, if you had to pick between A or B, what would you choose and why? Ask them more open-ended questions and have them ask you more open-ended questions. That will help them train their brain better and make you better. And the third piece, video messages, they can do that too.
Moving on to probably the second last question for now. How do you build confidence? Like, a lot of people come and ask me generally, I don't feel confident. First of all, probably they don't know the definition of confidence, or they're scared. Like, when they have to pitch their ideas, they have to present. And I'm talking about a lot of time, two sectors of people. One, who are those coders, and they have to go two levels up to share what amazing thing they've done. Second, coders or people, technical, who have just got into the leadership roles now.
Absolutely. And the answer is the same for both of those people, which is competence leads to confidence. So let's think about, let's use your analogy, because I know your demo really well. So let's say when we started coding our first language, were we confident? I don't know about you, but most of the technical people I've coached over my years weren't confident.
Yeah.
But when you started learning your third language, were you confident? Absolutely. Yeah, sure, you don't know the nuances of Java if you've coded in C++ or in Python, but you'll figure it out because it's the same process. Okay, go to GitHub, figure out how to debug the system, ask other coders, get resources. So why are we applying that analogy so well when we're debugging software? What happens when we don't know the answer? We find it. So it's not about a lack of resources, it's a lack of resourcefulness, like Tony Robbins says best. And we apply that mentality perfectly in the technical sphere. But we don't bring that same mentality, that same rigor, that same let's figure this out to communication. So what does that mean? That means the way that you get better at communication is sitting down and going, what is the process I need to optimize that I did in my technical career? And the answer for communication is simply, have we done the random word exercise 100 times?
As I said, I'm going to post all the links for all the viewers. But Brendan, I want to know from you if there's any sort of a recommendation from your end with respect to podcasts, books, blogs, website, anything that people can read it, watch it, so that they can be a better communicator.
Absolutely, Amit. So here's the book I would recommend, besides obviously doing it every day. Do the random word exercise every day, do the question drill every day, etc. It's a book called Thirst by Scott Harrison. Thirst by Scott Harrison. Scott Harrison's the CEO of Charity Water. It's a non-profit he started to help the world gain access to clean water. The reason why I always recommend Scott's book in the context of the work that I do is I believe that Scott Harrison's one of the best storytellers in the world today. And the reason is because he was able to take a simple idea and raise hundreds of millions of dollars to get 50 million people access to clean water. I think the guy's absolutely brilliant.